Um, okay, welcome to the MBA Secrets podcast. Today we're joined by Daniel Rellaford, and we really appreciate his time. As always, I'll give a quick background on him and then let him tell you more about it. So Daniel is a graduate of BYU, which is actually the school that I'm going to get my MBA from. So that's fun and exciting. He graduated in French Studies and HR, both, which is impressive. Which kind of is a little bit of a foreshadowing to why he might be at HEC Paris, which we'll get into here. Daniel worked at the Missionary Training Center, and for those of you who are listening to this, BYU is a religious institution, and the Missionary Training Center is where missionaries from our church go to prepare to serve for 2 years to teach about Jesus Christ. I did that same thing. I went to Atlanta, Georgia. Daniel, you went to an island called Reunion. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Right off the coast of Madagascar.
Amazing. So much different than Atlanta's. A very different experience than I had, but really, really cool. And I'm sure great experiences there.
Absolutely.
And then you went back to BYU to teach French. And then here, let's see if I can get this all in. It's very broad and diverse. It's really interesting. So you interned at Goodyear, at Southwest Airlines. You were a recruiter for TechForce, and then you held an HR role at Amazon, and now you're at HEC. So a lot of stuff to unpack there, but we'd love to hear your perspective on all of that.
Absolutely. Happy to be here tonight, Ryan. So let me just start then with BYU. So I learned French when I was overseas and on the island of Reunion, and I wanted to keep studying French. And so while I was in my undergrad studies, I had the opportunity to do an internship in France, as well as to continue studying. But I also wanted to supplement it with the business side of the education. So had the opportunity to go into human resources management in the Marriott School of Business for my undergrad, and had a fantastic time at Southwest Airlines as an intern during the summer. The next year, I joined Amazon as a senior human resources assistant, and I started with them in Cincinnati, Ohio. So this would have been 2016, right after I graduated. So I started with them. Essentially, it was a generalist role, a human resources generalist role. About a year later, I was invited to transfer to Phoenix, Arizona to launch a new fulfillment center. So I went over there, launched a brand new fulfillment center, including hiring 1,200 people in the space of 3 months. So It was very intense, fast-paced experience. And that was really kind of the whole trend. That was really the whole feel of Amazon was just fast-paced. You're learning as you're going. And anyway, by the time I left, I'd been promoted to human resources business partner, and had an amazing experience at these two different buildings, and with lots of different experiences. However, I felt like I wanted to learn some more and add some extra expertise to my background, and so that's why I chose to do an MBA.
Right. That's a common theme, I think, is many people who start their MBA, their goal is to kind of expand from where they were. They were very specialized, and they want to kind of broaden it out. So that's perfect. That was actually my first question, is why that MBA? And so why, or excuse me, where do you kind of want to go from here? What are your goals and long-term plans once you graduate?
Yeah, and I can talk about just right before that, why the MBA as well. So oftentimes an MBA is, someone will use it to switch careers.
Right.
For me, I had a strong career in business in a tech company, but however, it was often with the people side. And so I wanted to supplement that with kind of the hard skills from the business side. Oftentimes you'll see the opposite, where someone's coming from engineering and then they're kind of trying to learn the soft side. So anyway, I say that because it did influence the decision that I made to go to HEC Paris. And so when we look, so I guess fast forward, looking at being here at HEC Paris. HEC Paris has a big focus on really becoming a leader. It's a top school for creating executives. There's many French executives that have come out of HEC Paris, and they have a very strong curriculum that focuses on becoming a leader. So that, along with the French aspect, I see myself going in, long term. What the goal looks like is working in either a multinational firm globally, or what I'd love to do is start a kind of do a startup that is social enterprise focused, perhaps in French Africa. So being able to use the French skills.
Wow.
But short term, probably what this would look like is going into internal strategy within a major corporation or consulting.
And would you do that there in France or in Europe and in the US? Where would you ideally like to be?
Yeah, I think ideally, language is a big part of that, and I'm happy to talk about that a little bit more.
Sure.
When a European MBA, there's definitely some language considerations, and so for me, probably what would be most where I'd be most effective would be English speaking, even though I do speak French.
Right.
Would be English speaking, so that could look like London, it could be like Dubai, but I see myself probably United States, and then from there being able to kind of do more perhaps international assignments or so forth.
Right. That's wonderful. Okay, so let's pull it back before you went or got into HEC. That application experience. Did you apply to multiple schools, or was that kind of your sole focus?
Yeah, I did apply to multiple schools, but this was the only international school that I applied.
Oh, okay. And I'm assuming it was the top of your list.
Yeah, it was.
So tell us about maybe specifically HEC's application process, but also generally the application process that everybody goes through, like the GMAT, and everybody has their interviews and those kinds of things. Take us through that.
Sure thing. So obviously the GMAT, I'm sure there is no shortage of information or advice about this. So I'll keep it brief. Two pieces of advice are just to start early, and the second is work at it for a long time. So and so that worked well for me. As far as the other applications go, most of them will require some kind of essay, and then after you've been shortlisted for that, then you're able to have some kind of interview. So HEC's application process is quite unique, and fairly different from other schools. So most schools will do a round 1, round 2, and round 3.
Right.
HEC does a rolling interview or a rolling application. So you apply by a certain time of the month, and then 5 weeks later you find out if you got in or not.
I like that.
So that's nice, and it works. It's flexible. When you apply, so you obviously have all the main things, transcripts, so forth. The one biggest difference is probably you have a lot of essays. So I had 5 essays that I had to write.
Jeez.
And some of them the first one is kind of a major question that's like 750 words. The second is about like your career aspirations and so forth. And then the other 3 are like 250 word questions, but they were unique questions. I don't remember them off the top of my head, but one of them was like, tell us about someone in someone in the business circles or in politics that you admire and why you admire them. So just kind of a general question like this. So it is fairly interesting. Once you make the interview list, the interviews are in fact with alumni. They're with HEC alumni, rather than doing it with HEC faculty or something like that. Or
very unique. Okay.
And you have a 10-minute call with each alumni, or a 15-minute or so forth.
Sure.
And you present for about 10 minutes. You do a full presentation on any topic of your choice.
Oh my goodness.
So it can be whatever you want. I did mine on I talked about hiking because it's a hobby of mine, and then I kind of related it to talking about myself, my own goals, and that was something that was received well. So after you do that, and then after your interviewers submit their votes, you find out. There's certain times where you find out, and at that point, you receive a letter of acceptance.
Wow, very different. But I like that.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. Um, okay, so kind of the next phase, you've been accepted, right? You're in the program. When do you graduate specifically, Daniel?
So the program, my classes end January 2022, but
Okay.
I officially graduate June 2022.
Okay. All right. So you're
Yeah.
kind of on the front end here.
Yeah.
How,
Exactly.
what advice would you give to people who are in your spot and are in their program and want to maximize their experience and get involved and make sure that they don't get through this MBA experience with it having passed them by?
Yeah. I mean, I think especially right now, it's a tricky time to be in an
Yes.
MBA.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so I know full well about that. The I guess the advice that I'd have is you can still do a lot of those MBA things, even with COVID, right? Even
Right.
with the effects of COVID. So networking, you can still get to know your classmates, and so even though you may not have the tendency or the desire to do that, right,
Mm-hmm.
because of everything, the barriers that are in the way, you can still make the effort and
Right.
still have those good connections. Um, and then, I guess I'd just say another thing is that you still have time. I think
Yeah.
that's a thing that when you're in an MBA, you kind of feel like, oh wow, I already need to have decided. Um, I need to have a job like the
Right.
first 2 months you get in. But part of it too is like this time is not just it is to get a job. Obviously, that's why
Sure.
we're doing it.
Yeah.
But it's also a time to explore, to find out some things about yourself. And so that's the advice I'm telling myself, and also the advice for anybody else that's still in an MBA.
Right. I love it. Um, so it might be a little bit different. Well, it is different, right, with coronavirus and everything, unfortunately. But hopefully we're kind of on the back end of that. Either way, though, what is your day-to-day experience like? This is something that we haven't really gotten into much on this podcast, but um, I think it's important for people to know what's it like on an average day, a typical day in an MBA.
Yeah, sure. I mean, so you're definitely going to have your classes. It's different than undergrad in
Mm-hmm.
that the classes, the teachers hold you to a different level.
Right.
But I would say, and there's some more flexibility, right? But you're going to have your classes that are scheduled, and so you go, at least at HEC Paris, we have core classes for the first year.
Yep.
So those classes are typically scheduled, and you go to class when those are scheduled. In a fairly rigorous program like HEC's, you're going to be doing a lot of homework afterwards.
Yes. Yep.
Then the Career Center will probably have different events that you can attend, maybe like a case cracking workshop. You may attend different company events, and then typically in the evening we would have like club events. So there's quite a few clubs at HEC, and so we different kind of club events via Zoom that we're doing, where we're talking to somebody in the industry, or there's other opportunities to do things beyond just clubs. You can do case competitions. So there's no shortage of things to do, and your schedule gets fairly busy, so you have to prioritize pretty well.
So the challenge is not filling it; it's trying to keep it at bay. Right.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, you're in an interesting kind of position, I think. Well, I don't know. Maybe you're not. Are there a lot of Americans at HEC Paris?
There actually are more than I would have thought.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in my class of 130, we
Mm-hmm.
have, I believe, 11.
Okay.
So yeah, so it's almost 10%.
Yeah, that is
But
actually
then yeah, but then there's people from 50 countries
everywhere. Yes.
in our
Right.
class. Yeah.
Very diverse, I can imagine. But as an American there, I mean, obviously you had your mission experience at a very exotic and in a place that most people have never heard of. But now you're in Europe and you're in an amazing place. To those who are considering moving overseas for their MBA, maybe specifically at HEC Paris, because that's where you know best. What has that been like for you in terms of exploring and learning about that culture and all of those things?
Yeah, yeah. So this is probably a good time to mention like the language. So
Yeah.
if you're going to do an MBA in Europe, you don't have to speak uh,
Right.
another language. So you
It's good to
can
know.
just speak English. However, a lot of employers that come to that university will be looking for people that speak the language of the the country that you're in, right? So there are quite a few companies that come looking for French speakers,
Right.
and so that's just something to kind of bear in mind.
Think about.
And I would say like of the Americans, probably only three speak French. So
Interesting.
there are quite a few that don't. But but what I will say is it helps to speak the language, and then even if you don't speak the language, try to learn the language
Mm,
while you're there. Um, there's there's really no substitute for trying to go and order food, or like try to buy a baguette at the
right.
boulangerie, and it really helps you kind of get into the culture. So I'd
Right.
say like learning the language is huge. And then beyond that, um, just try to integrate yourself, like walk around, take the bus,
Right.
you know try out different places. It's fun to be in a different place, and you're going to see a lot of new things.
Perfect. That's awesome. A lot of really, really good insights, Daniel. We really appreciate that. And I think one of the biggest takeaways for me is just, um, I don't know, your words about just the personal experience. And I think that's extremely valuable for people to hear because, like you said, there's a lot of information out there. You were particularly talking about the GMAT, and there's no shortage of information. And really, there is no shortage of information for an MBA in general. But it's when we get down into the nitty gritty like that new things are learned. So we really appreciate that. Um, and with that, I know it's late over there. We're about 8 hours apart, so I will let you get back to whatever you've got going on because it's, I'm sure, very important. But wanted to express our gratitude and say thank you for joining.
Absolutely, and I'm happy to answer any questions if anybody has questions about HEC Paris. Happy to
Perfect.
answer those.
Cool. Perfect. So you know where to find Daniel. It's Daniel Rellaford. Um, just search HEC Paris and sounds like he's really willing to help. So we appreciate it, Daniel. Thanks again.
All right,
Okay.
thank you.
Have a good
Have a good
night.
night. See you.
Bye bye.